All right, folks, we're ready to have some fun here. I got a couple of different cameras set up here so we can see some different angles on things. And I'm just going to walk you through the process of using the system pretty much from start to finish. Let's start out by turning the system on. All right, so what we've got here is we've got our hub with our 8 analog inputs coming from the console. And we're going out into one station now for this particular test. So let's turn the system on. First thing we need to do on the hub is select the input. We want to go to input A, which is slots 1 and 2, where the analog inputs are. And then we'll turn the system on. And the first thing you'll notice is both the hub and the mixer go through a startup process. So you know that everything's on. Right now, the sample rate indicator says we're at 192K. The HearBack Pro icon is lit blue, which is a good sign. That means that we are in the normal state here without any problems. And the reason we're at 192K, by the way, is that's the default internal sampling rate of the system. So that's right, we're sending 192K audio from the hub to all the stations that are connected to this hub. So we're up and running on the hub. I'm going to do that once again now so we can see the same process happen over on the mixer. So here we go, we're turning the system on. This is what it looks like on the mixer. Mixer does its little startup process here. Goes through each channel, does a system check, and the HearBack Pro icon switches from red to blue. And we are ready to rock. It's that simple. Okay, now that the system's up and going, the first thing I'm going to do here is put my headphones on. Now you're going to hear everything I hear through the line outs on the HearBack mixer exactly as I do. So any adjustments I make here, turning things up and down and all that kind of stuff, you're going to hear all of that. So you'll be getting exactly the sound quality and the imaging and everything else that I'm hearing because I'm recording out of those line outs into a 2-track digital recorder that I'm going to edit into the video later. So here we go. Headphones on. So a great design feature of the HearBack Pro is it remembers the state of the mixer where you were the last time it was switched off. So in this case, I was over here messing around with it before I started the video, and it shows all the settings that I had when I started. But we're going to start on a preset here that doesn't have anything in it. So what we've done using the scribble strips is we've written in all of the outputs that are coming from the mixer. So we've got drums left, drums right. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Electric guitar 1 and 2, bass, harmonica, percussion, which happens to be a tambourine that comes in the song about halfway through, and the click track. So this was basically a little blues instrumental that we did, and these are the tracks as they were set up in the DAW and sent to the 8 outputs that we had for the HearBack Pro system. This is what everybody has access to hear at their own mixer. So the very first thing we're going to adjust here is the master level. Now I happen to have it set up here, but they recommend in the manual that you start the master level up around 10 o'clock. I'm going to put it a little higher than that just for the purposes of this demonstration. But the manual says if you start it around 10 o'clock and then you adjust the inputs accordingly, you're basically using the levels on all of the channels and the master at optimum for quality sound. So it's something definitely worth checking out in the manual. All right, I'm going to push play over here on our little recording so that we get some signal starting. And one of the really cool things about some of the checking features that we've got, you'll notice over there on the hub we're seeing data coming out of almost all 8 channels right now, and those quad color LEDs are indicating what kind of signal level we're getting. But one of the things you can do on the mixer is if you press the aux button and hold it down, it will show you which channels actually have signal coming through them even if you don't have anything turned up. So we can see right now on the mixer that 7 out of the 8 channels actually have signal on them even though we haven't turned anything up and don't hear anything. That's a great feature. The reason we don't hear anything in the 7th channel there the percussion is that's where the tambourine is, and it doesn't come till later in the song. But there's our indicator that we've got signal, and now we know which channels to bother adjusting on our mixer based on what's coming in. So we'll go out of that mode here. So the default is all of the individual channels are set to 0 in terms of their level. So the first thing we're going to do is start turning some stuff up. We'll start up here in the upper left corner with the left drums. By golly, there they are. Okay, let's turn up the right equally. Again, I'll talk more about the left and right in a little bit here. So there's our drums. Let's add some bass to that. It's a little hot. There we go. How about some guitars? So you get really nice visual feedback with the nice bright blue LEDs that are showing the levels on each of the channels. Here's the lead guitar. And Murphy's Law would have it that the song ends, but I've got it set to loop, so it'll come back around in a moment. And here it comes again. Now as we're tracking, we might want to hear a little bit of click. There's our click. Since that's really obnoxious to listen to in a demo, I'm just going to turn the click back down here. And the percussion, we don't hear yet because we're in the beginning of the song. So let me go to that spot where the percussion comes in here. There it is. There's the percussion, the tambourine. That's going to come and go depending on where we are in the song. So there's our 8 basic levels. So it all sounds really good already, and we've got a nice overall level balance between all of the different instruments. But one of the things I love about the Hearback Pro over some other systems out there, the Hearback included, is that we have total panning control, stereo left and right, for every channel. And the way we adjust that is really simple. We simply hit the pan button, and notice that all the LEDs turn to green now. So not only have we got ourselves a really easy way to adjust everything, but we've got a really nice indicator of what mode we're in. And this is sort of a common theme that runs through the Hearback Pro. So as long as all of our LEDs are green, we are ready to go ahead and adjust all of the pans. And by default, they all start dead center. So we'll start our song over again here, and we'll start adjusting the pans. First thing to do, logically, would be drums left and right. Whoops. Oh, I want to stop right now and explain why we went back to the blue LEDs and back into volume mode. This is a great feature that I really like they've implemented in the Hearback Pro, and that is if you go into a mode and you don't make any changes for 30 seconds, the system automatically reverts back to its default mode, which is volume control. I really like that feature. So if I'm here in a session and I inadvertently bump a button or something like that, and I look away, or I'm distracted, or I'm in the middle of tracking something, if I don't do anything else, the system's going to go back to its default mode. So if I reach up 5 minutes later and make an adjustment that I think is volume, I'm not suddenly getting something else. That theme runs through the design, and I think it was a really clever feature that they implemented. So as I was talking over the music there for more than 30 seconds, it defaulted back to volume mode. So now we'll go back to pan mode. We'll start our music again, and we'll start with adjusting the drum left and right. That sounds better already. So why don't we split the guitars a little bit here. I don't want him as far as over on the stereo spectrum, but let's put that one guitar over here in the corner. Feels pretty good. So you've got full control of the stereo spectrum. Bass will leave dead center. Where's that harp? I don't know if he's come in yet or not. We could put the click over in one ear if we needed to. Let's go back into volume mode on that harp first. Turn him up. There he is. Back into pan mode. There we go. Harp's over on the right. Now let's see where we want that tambo. Now let's put him over in the far left corner. And if we wanted to, once again back into volume mode, turn up the click to a nice obnoxious level. And we could put him off to one side if we wanted to. So there's our panning. It's that simple. Switch out of pan mode, back to volume mode, turn down the obnoxious click, and there you have it. It's that simple. So we've already adjusted the master volume, we've adjusted the levels on each channel, and we've got all the channels identified by the scribble strips there with the dry erase marker, and we've adjusted the pan of everything as well. So now that we've got a nice little mix dialed in, let's say we want to save the mix we've got. So that brings up our next button here over on the bottom, which is our preset button. If you press the preset button and hold it, it will start to blink. And as soon as it blinks, it is on a particular preset number. And if you just release right then it's stored automatically in that preset. So what we did was we were on 4 and we pressed it and held it. And as soon as it started to blink, we let go and that stored it in number 4. But let's say we want to store it somewhere else. So now we'll press and hold, wait for it to blink, and then it starts to round robin through the different presets. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we let go when it's on 1, then we store it in preset 1. It's that simple. So notice now, because I was messing around with this thing before I started this video, I'm going to go from 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you'll notice that the settings automatically change. And that's everything. That's not just the levels, that's the panning and the other states of the mixer. So that's a really, really great way to store and recall presets. The only caution I have here is if you have started up your mixer from scratch and you've dialed in a really great mix like we just did there, and you inadvertently come over here and just press the preset button one time, it's automatically going to switch to the next preset, which means you just lost everything that you did before. So there may be a future release of this system where you don't inadvertently get rid of stuff like that, but that's the one caution that I found when it comes to presets, is if you just happen to bump it, you automatically go to the next preset, and whatever you were at, if it hasn't been stored anyway, is gone. Now, one other thing I want to mention here, we'll go back to preset 4 where we started. If you make any change at all in any value on any channel when you're in a preset that you've dialed up, it blinks that number to let you know that the state of the mixer right now is different from where you started with that preset. That's a great feature because it reminds you to resave if you want to keep the settings that you've just adjusted. All right, so we've got levels, we've got panning, we've got presets. I want to go back and mention one thing about panning here, which is really key. We've got drums left and right up here. And why should we have to adjust individual levels and panning on those drums when they're part of a stereo pair anyway? So what you can do is use the notion of stereo linking or stereo panning, and that's really easy to do. You press the pan button and hold it down, and it switches into pan link mode or pan pairing mode, and you'll notice that everything blinks at this point. So if I take either of a odd even pair and I turn it, then it switches to a mode where the two are split opposite left and right, and then I push pan again, and now I've actually got two channels that are stereo linked. So what that means is I can go back to our default volume mode now, and either one, the left or the right volume knob now, will control the volume of that entire stereo pair. I really like the fact that it doesn't matter which one you turn, the left or the right, it automatically does them both. That's a really, really nice implementation there. So once again, in order to stereo pair things, all we do is hold down the pan button until all of the green LEDs start blinking, and then we can use any odd even pair, so there are a total of 8 of them out of the 16 channels, to make a paired or linked stereo set. Again, really, really easy to use. So let's talk a little bit more about the aux system. The only thing we've seen so far is when you hold down the aux button for a few seconds, it goes into channel signal mode, and you can see which channels actually have audio coming in on them. But that's a secondary use. The main use of the aux channel is to select the volume for listening to the aux input that's in the back. Now right now I've got up top here, I've got the microphone connected to the mic input on the aux in. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But I mentioned earlier in the video before that what I wanted to do was connect my cell phone's output, its little 1/8" connector here, to the stereo aux in the back so that I could listen to some work tapes or audition tracks, that kind of thing. Now you can only use either the mic or the line input for aux, but the great thing is there's an easy switch in the back, and I found it very, very quick to just reach back here. It's right up at the top, and switch back and forth between the two quite easily. So the typical scenario is while you're waiting between tracks, you can then now take your cell phone and go ahead and listen to your audition tracks or whatever the case may be. You can also use it for a drummer's click if you want to. If the drummer wants to use the aux input as a click just for the drummer, and then everybody can follow the drummer, that's a very common thing. But the concept is here that you're listening to the aux stereo input at one point, and then you switch to the microphone at other times for the intercom if you want to use that. You can also use the microphone as just an aux input for things like a more me if you're playing an acoustic instrument like a guitar or a fiddle or something like that, and also for if you're in a live situation, something like crowd, ambient sound, that kind of thing. So there are a lot of uses for that. But one of the things I like the absolute most about the way this system has been set up in terms of setting volumes is you've actually got control over 3 different volume levels in the system. The first one, of course, is your master level on all of your channels coming in for your main mix. The next one is on the aux itself. So I'm going to switch the aux mode here to line in the back. I'm going to take my cell phone out here and I'm going to bring up my little audio player here and I'm going to play a song. So here I've dialed up a song on my cell phone, and I'm going to start playing that here. This is my little work tape I'm listening to, and right now we don't hear anything, and that's because the aux level by default is off. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to push the aux button. Here's the red indicator that we're in aux mode, and I'm going to turn up the music. So I have the volume now adjusted on the aux that's independent to everything else. So if for some reason I wanted to mix in the aux with the rest of the audio, let's say if I'm using it as a click, I can adjust it independently while the music is playing. Christmas. So the point here is that the master volume of the mix and the aux volume are totally independent from one another, which I think is a fabulous feature. So that takes care of using the aux and setting the aux volume. Now the other thing I want to show is using the mic. So it's kind of off camera here a little bit, so I'll bring it down here so we can actually see it some. But this is the gooseneck mic that comes from the Hearback folks, a really, really great feature that I talked about earlier in the video. But it's aiming at me here, and I'm going to switch my aux input now to mic in the back. And now you'll notice it's pretty darn loud. So if you're using that mic, it's got lots and lots and lots of pickup in it. So the first thing I want to do is turn down the level if I'm using the mic. So there's a much more reasonable level. So you'll notice it's picking up a lot of the room. It's great for ambient conversations, for a talk back. If you happen to not be next to your station, it'll pick you up really, really well. It's got lots and lots of output, as you can see. Off, of course, completely. But let's say I'm using it as a more me system. Now I've got a little bit of noise going on in the background in the studio. Normally, if I was in another room recording here, it'd be pretty quiet. But let's say I'm recording it as a more me. So I'm going to just talk over it a little bit while the music's playing until I get a good level. Okay, more me, more me, more me. Let's go to a different spot in the song. Murphy's Law, of course, it stopped again, and here it comes. Okay, music's playing. I maybe play my violin or my trumpet or my acoustic guitar, whatever, along with it, and I adjust the level here to get my more me system exactly where I want it to be. Let's say I feel pretty good right about there. Okay, now I've set the level for my aux, and now it stays at that level, and anything I do will play over top of the main mix now, and I can turn it up and down anytime I want just by hitting that aux button. So that's a really, really cool use for the aux there. So for right now, let's just turn the aux all the way down. Okay, so we're not using the aux anymore as a more me system. We've turned it off, and the reason I'm doing that is I want to show that the aux volume as well as the master mix volume are completely separate from the intercom volume. So this is the first time we've gotten to the intercom switch. So to use the intercom is a very simple thing. If you press and hold it like this, you're getting the intercom automatically. So I'm just pressing and holding. Now the default volume for the intercom is 75%. That's an awful lot, but you have independent control over the intercom system as well. So I'm going to turn it down to about there. So now I have a volume set for the intercom, I have a volume set for the aux, and I have a volume set for my main mix, all independently. Now, the other feature that's really interesting with the intercom is there's an automatic leveling feature in the intercom system that makes it so that if somebody else is talking to you, that the level will be brought up so you can hear it regardless of how soft it is. So let's talk a little bit more about actually using the intercom system. I mentioned before, if you press the intercom button and hold it down, now you have control of the intercom and you're talking to everybody else on the system who's got a hearback mixer and has the intercom level turned up. And that's one of the reasons it defaults to 75% is so that people will be able to hear something when you get started and realize that the intercom is actually being used. The next thing we can do is we press the intercom quickly 3 times. And now the intercom is latched, so I can sit here and talk and not have to use my hands on the mixer, and everybody on the system now hears me talking through the intercom. Now, just to make this clear, I don't necessarily have to be talking through the mic over the intercom system. I could actually be sending the aux through the intercom system. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch it from the microphone to the stereo in, and I'm going to play that music again on my cell phone, and everybody hears it. So I can share my work tape or even my click for that matter. I wouldn't necessarily do it over the intercom system, but the point is I can share whatever I've got coming from the aux in with everyone over the intercom, not just the microphone. I think that's a great design feature. So let's switch back again to the intercom, to the mic rather, for the intercom system. Now, what happens if I, which of course never happens with me in a session, where I would get distracted and I put down my bass and I get up and I go off to the restroom, for example, and I've left the intercom on. Great feature again is if the intercom is left latched on, because by design only one person can talk at a time through the intercom. If it's left on, all I need to do as another user is just tap it 3 times and I take control of the intercom. So if somebody in the other room realizes that the intercom is latched and Fett has left his seat, all they need to do is hit it 3 times and they take control of the intercom. Really, really nice, convenient feature. Keeps things nice and simple and very effective. By the way, I should mention that even though I'm using the microphone that comes with the Hearback Pro, you can use any microphone in that XLR input in the back. So this happens to be a powered condenser microphone that uses the 15-volt power that's coming out of the XLR jack, but I could just as soon use an SM58 or any other XLR mic for the intercom and the aux in. There's one more thing I want to mention about the intercom system, and that is it can be entirely disabled on a mixer by mixer basis. So there's a little key sequence you can go through when you plug in the RJ45 connector that will turn that thing off completely. So if for some reason you don't want people using the intercom, or it's confusing for the particular setup you've got or whatever, you can simply disable the whole thing, again, on a mixer by mixer basis. that's basically a rundown of the major functions of the HearBack Pro mixer. There's lots and lots of other cool stuff they did that you can get from the manual, but this kind of covers the most important stuff. There is one other nifty little feature I want to mention here, and that is, let's say that you want to start afresh and have your settings all start from some default state. So let's go ahead and store this preset in number 4 because it's blinking slowly, so we know we didn't store the setting changes that we made. Now we're going to go over here back to 1 because that's what we had before, and you'll notice all of our settings and everything are recalled from before. It's same as our panning, all that kind of stuff. Now let's say we want to start afresh. So all you do is hold down both the pan and aux buttons for a second until the system blinks and you're done. So all of the levels go back to 0, including the master, by the way, and all of your pan settings go back to dead center, and all of your pairings are taken away. Fortunately, it does not affect your presets. All the levels and the panning and the presets and the pairing is kept. The only thing you have to readjust after you've done a reset is the master volume. So that's, again, a really, really nice convenience. Now we can go back to preset 1. Let's reset it again. So the system is set to default, and now we can just store in preset 1. There it's blinking, we let go. So now when we come back around to preset 1, it's our default setting with everything turned off. Really, really nice feature. So we'll adjust our master back up there and go to our preset 4. We're right back where we started. So here's a little tip I'd like to make about using the intercom system. I like the way the intercom system is designed so much that I'm actually thinking of replacing the talkback in my own environment that I've got on my mixer, on my console, with the one inside the HearBack Pro. So what I typically do is I reach way up here on my mixer and I press my talkback button and it comes on and off and what have you. But when doing the testing of this system, I notice when I press the intercom system, it actually sounds way, way better than the talkback on my own console. It gives everybody individual volume control over their own intercom, which I can't, of course, give them with the talkback coming from my console. Everybody gets the same level. And from an audibility viewpoint, the frequency response of the microphone, the gooseneck mic that comes from the HearBack folks, it's actually much, much easier to understand than my talkback was on my console. So there's two things here. First of all, if you don't have any talkback at all in your recording system, say in your home studio or your project studio, something like that, the easy way to add it is just to have a station of your own at the engineer position or the producer position, the person who's in the control room basically controlling the session. The other thing this gives you is the ability to integrate the intercom into your own system so you can hear what everybody else is doing. Now, if you have headphones on and you use them with a station just like everybody else, then you're getting the same intercom in your headphones that all the other people are hearing. But you can go a step further and use the line outputs on the bottom of the mixer and feed them back into your DAW interface or your console and actually hear the entire thing without having to use headphones. In other words, you're hearing the intercom system over your speakers from the control room. So there's lots of really nifty things you can do with this system because of all the inputs and outputs and the various options that you have for how you want to use them. So at this point, as a way of wrap up of this part of the video, I'd just like to do a really, really quick recap of my favorite features of the new HearBack Pro system. First of all, it's got 16 channels, or 18 if you include the stereo input on the back here in the aux in, and independent control over the level and the pan, and also the stereo pairing or linking of all 16 channels in the system. You've got 2 headphone outputs on the bottom here, one with a 1/4 inch and one with an 1/8 inch connector, which I think is a great design feature. Basically, you can use any type of headphone connector with the system as well as both sets of headphones together. You've got line outs on the bottom that you can set to other monitoring systems. You can set them into a recorder just like I'm doing now and even record your rehearsal when you're recording live, or even get a recording of what you're recording in the studio directly out of the mix that you hear through your mixer. We've also got 4 savable presets, which as we've seen are extremely easy to set and recall. We've got an intercom system that's very, very straightforward and easy to use. We've got up to 192K sampling rate in the system. The system is very expandable with the daisy chaining of the hubs and the mixers, basically unlimited in that case. And another thing I want to mention again is the system, both the hub and the mixers, is really, really well built. The hub is in a rock solid metal chassis that's very, very durable, but also the mixers are made of really, really great hard plastic material that's super lightweight but really, really rugged. So I could say an awful lot more about the system. Obviously, I was really impressed, but that ought to give you a pretty darn good idea of most of the features that the system provides. I really couldn't find much wrong to talk about with the system. If I had to cite anything, I would say my two nits are it's pretty easy to inadvertently switch to a preset and lose all the settings you've got on the mixer. I'm sure that's something they could fix with a little bit different way of using the buttons. And the other thing is, you might have noticed when I was using the intercom system, you could hear the fan on the hub pretty loudly in the room there. The manual says that the fan is designed to very, very rarely come on and that it's super quiet. That was not my experience here, but I suspect it's because I got an early unit that was for review, and I'm sure it's something they've addressed by now. But other than the little preset bump and the fan, I couldn't find anything else to say about the system that needs to be changed. So there you have it, folks. That's our hands-on portion of the review. I hope you enjoyed seeing the system half as much as I enjoyed using it. I've been really, really impressed with all the thought that went into the design, how good quality sounding it is, and also how easy the system is to use. So if you're looking for a really great live or studio monitoring system, I highly recommend looking at the HearBack Pro. You can find out more about it at heartechnologies.com.